it's a very good point. I'm glad we talked about the Latin, how it's kind of falling out of favor. If they were honest, they would want consistency. The only consistency they have is that they will say whatever is necessary to justify their position, regardless of the facts, regardless of the evidence, regardless if there's witnesses, regardless of how unfair it actually is. Because when you're going to get paid either way, you see, forcing people to pay you means never having to have a basis to support your arguments. When you can flippantly say, if you don't like it, you can appeal it. We've probably all have heard that. That's when you know you've got a real piece of garbage in that robe. You got somebody who couldn't care less. All he wants you to do is get the hell out of his courtroom. He wants you out of there. He doesn't care if it is reversed on appeal. Which, if you go to markstevens.net, I'll get that. I know we had in California, we had another appeal success. We had another successful appeal up in Alameda, California. So definitely go to markstevens.net. I will get that posted as soon as I can, which is an easier one because I already did the video to that, but now I can get it back on the website. And for those who aren't familiar, you're new listening to the No Stay Project, typically prosecutors don't respond. Yes, they have the burden of proof. So why don't they respond when you're asking for evidence? And the reason why they don't is, well, first, they have no evidence. The best they can do is say, I can argue without evidence. I don't need evidence. You need evidence to disprove me. So saith Odin. I mean, see, in a way, you're probably asking, how the hell could someone like that get away with that? How could someone actually walk into court with this? I don't need evidence to support my claims, but you need proof if you're going to prove it wrong. Wrong. How does someone get away with saying things like that? Because the judge and the prosecutor are on the same team. And that team goes by a DBA. That's doing business as DBA. Very common thing in the business world. So you have something like Physicians Group doing business as Subway. That DBA is called a state. Now, there is no such thing as a state. It is literally just a word on a piece of paper. There is absolutely nothing physical. There is no physical referent for the word. It's a complete abstraction. There is no physical referent for the word state. But you can say, but I can see Arizona. That's not the state. Because I'll tell you, the state has jurisdiction over that geographic area called Arizona. DBA. And they could be non-responsive. They can make ridiculous claims like, I don't have to prove it, but you have to have evidence to disprove it. And they'll tell you that you can't argue without evidence. So there's a nice little double standard going on there. Oh, and they get away with it because that's right. They have a prison system. And if you have a prison system, you can get away with it too. Oh, yes, you run the risk of being killed, but if you can convince people you have a moral right to do so, they'll blame your victims. So the prosecution is typically non-responsive to our motion, not because it doesn't have merit, because it damn well does. They're non-responsive to it because they have no proof, and they're stuck arguing things like we mentioned. They have to argue that the law is evidence the Constitution applies. See, in the prosecutors, they don't always claim, we don't have to prove that. They will argue that the evidence is either your physical location, or it's the RCW, or it is the United States Code of the laws, getting it backwards. But hey, getting it bass backwards, that's what you have to do when your position is untenable. Because that which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. Vox et prehil, vox et praetea nihil. It's voice and nothing more. Just because I write things down on a piece of paper, that doesn't mean it applies to anybody. Same thing with them. But they're duly elected. Ay. If by duly elected you mean they force people to pay them on the threat of death, then you got a point.